America once set the global standard for tool manufacturing. Then 2.9 million jobs vanished, and 85% of production left the country. To understand how an empire this powerful nearly collapsed, you have to go back to where it all began. Long before America was a nation, the story of toolmaking began on the windswept shores of Newfoundland. In 1021, Norse smiths at Lonzo's Meadows forged iron from bog ore, leaving behind the first metal nails in North America. Dendrochronology pinpoints their work to that exact year, centuries before the first English colony. But the Norse outpost faded, and for thousands of years, native peoples shaped bone, ivory, and stone into tools for survival. No forges, no iron, only skill and necessity. Everything changed with the arrival of European settlers. By the mid-1600s, colonial blacksmiths and foundries sprang up from Massachusetts to Virginia. Saugus Ironworks, running by 1647, used water-powered hammers and rolling mills to turn local bog iron into bars, nails, and blades. British trade laws, like the Iron Act of 1750, tried to keep the colonies dependent, banning new rolling and slitting mills. Yet by 1775, American forges were producing a substantial share of the world's raw iron, enough to hint at a future industrial power. The colonial surge in ironwork laid the foundation for a homegrown manufacturing tradition, ready to break free from old world control. In 1843, Frederick Stanley opened a small shop in New Britain, Connecticut. What began as a modest operation making bolts and hinges soon grew into a force that would reshape American toolmaking. By 1852, Stanley had incorporated his business, laying the groundwork for a new era of industrial ambition. But it was the arrival of Leonard Bailey, an inventive machinist from Massachusetts, that set the company on a different trajectory. Bailey's 1869 patent for the adjustable hand plane turned a simple carpenter's tool into a precision instrument. Stanley secured the rights, and production numbers surged, from just 6,500 planes sold in 1871 to over 100,000 by 1876. The surge drew competitors, and a bitter patent war erupted between Stanley and Bailey's rival, Victor. Lawsuits dragged on for nearly a decade, culminating in Stanley's legal victory in 1884 and the acquisition of Victor's factory. The company began stamping Bailey on every plane, a symbol of both innovation and dominance. Stanley's relentless pursuit of patents and legal control transformed a craft shop into an industrial powerhouse, setting a standard that others would chase for generations. In 1917, two engineers, S. Duncan Black and Alonzo Decker, filed a patent for a portable electric drill, fitting a pistol grip and trigger switch into a compact body. Their invention, built in a Baltimore machine shop, would launch Black and Decker into the heart of American households and factories. By 1946, the company introduced its first line of home utility power tools, bringing industrial strength into everyday garages and basements. Meanwhile, in 1920, Snap-on Tools began selling interchangeable socket wrenches from a small Milwaukee workshop. Their promise, 5 do the work of 50, reshaped how mechanics worked across the country. Sears, Roebuck & Company staked its claim in 1927, buying the Craftsman trademark for $500 and introducing the now legendary lifetime guarantee. The Craftsman name became a badge of trust for generations. In 1963, Stanley introduced the Powerlock tape measure, a chrome-plated tool that soon found its way into NASA's Apollo missions. By 1969, American-made tools had reached the moon. This was the golden age, when brands like Stanley, Black & Decker, Snap-on, and Craftsman stood as proof of American manufacturing's reach and reputation, shaping both the nation's progress and its identity. Factories that once roared in Ohio and Connecticut fell silent as production lines shifted across the Pacific. After China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, the US lost nearly 2.9 million manufacturing jobs by 2008. 85% of the world's power tools now come from Chinese plants, a reversal that drained not just jobs but entire design teams, testing labs, and engineering departments from American soil. Toolmakers who had defined generations, Stanley, Black & Decker, Craftsman, outsourced production, closed hometown factories, and laid off skilled workers who had built their lives around the rhythm of the assembly line. Economists tracked the damage in Bureau of Labor Statistics reports and WTO impact studies, warning that the loss of manufacturing was more than a matter of payrolls. With each plant closure, America's ability to design, prototype, and produce the next generation of tools slipped away. The collapse was not just economic, but cultural, leaving empty main streets and a sense of lost capability that would haunt the country for years. Stanley Black and Decker's 2010 merger created a giant with the power to reshape the American tool industry. 7 years later, the company spent $900 million to bring Craftsman back under American control, promising to return a legendary brand to domestic production. By 2024, the reshoring wave had announced 244,000 manufacturing jobs for the year, part of a surge totaling over 2.5 million since 2010, as tracked by the Reshoring Initiative. Yet the stakes remain high. The U.S. tool and machine market stands at $48 billion, but a gap of 1.9 million unfilled manufacturing jobs looms by 2033. Snap-on, still headquartered in Wisconsin, reported $4.7 billion in net sales and held 5,393 active patents in 2024, showing that American ingenuity endures where investment and talent align. Executives now bet on Industry 4.0, AI-driven robotics, digital supply chains, and smart factories to keep pace with global rivals. The next generation of workers faces a challenge: rebuild the skills and capacity that once made American tools the standard for the world. The future of manufacturing and the nation's ability to shape its own destiny hangs in the balance. America's industrial future is forged on factory floors, not just in labs. As reshoring accelerates, the true test is whether innovation and manufacturing can once again rise together. The stakes are survival.